Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bob Melkonian, and I am the Practice Director for Financials at YASH Technologies. I'd like to welcome all of you to today's webinar, GL Financial Planning Rapid Deployment Solution, otherwise known as RDS, using SAP's BPC, Business Planning and Consolidation's NetWeaver 10.0 version with integration to SAP ECC and SAP BW. During this webinar, we'll showcase how to utilize RDS to optimize and tightly integrate the new GL financial planning solution with other SAP components. We'll cover the following: scope of GL financial planning, the audience and the users of the GL financial planning RDS, benefits of GL financial planning RDS, and we'll wrap it up with a demonstration. A Q&A will be held at the end of the webinar, so please feel free to type any questions you may have in the questions box, and we'll sequence those and put those in order. I wanted to quickly review the agenda and the contents. So a brief description for those of you who are not familiar with YASH Technologies. What is SAP BPC? What is the RDS and how you would use it? And then the meat of the presentation, the scope of GL financial planning, audience and users of GL financial planning, the architecture and core data structures, and then the cycle of extraction and the flow of information until it ultimately gets to BPC. And as mentioned, we'll do a demo, and finally we'll leave enough time for a Q&A session. As far as YASH Technologies, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, YASH is a mid-sized partner of SAP's global partner. We have 2,700 global employees, about 1,000 of those in the SAP practice, of which myself and the presenter are in. And we have a concentration in verticals such as manufacturing, chemical, professional services, and high tech, and customers, as I mentioned, all across the globe. Today's presenter is Mr. Avi Deer. Avi has a background and a hands-on background in BPC. He is a solution architect with YASH, based in our Chicago office, chartered accountant, had a background in FICO, as did I, and he's worked with such leading companies as HP, GM, Gillette, AIG, and TEP. Probably is enough acronyms for all of us, and he's been to Canada, Thailand, and the UK, worked on different projects. Avi has an extensive background. He's certified in 5 areas, including APO, supply chain, BW, controlling, FI, and SEM, strategic enterprise management system, for those of you who are familiar with that tool. And those have helped him to give him a foundational background in BPC, and he's familiar and specialized with both the planning side as well as the consolidation side of the tool. And I would want to turn it over now to Avi to do the meat of the presentation. And thanks once again for attending today's session. Okay, Avi.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you, everybody, for attending, taking time to attend this FIGL RDS presentation. We feel it's a very important thing, but before we start any further, we would like to get a feedback from the audience. And we have a couple of poll questions. So the next screen will show some poll questions, 2 poll questions, and please answer them, which will help us tailor the presentation to you, all of you. Okay, we got a very interesting feedback on this audience side. Now we have a second poll questions. What tools are you currently using for planning? Excel, Cognos, Hyperion, SAP, or another tool? We have majority of people using Excel. Again, it's, I think, correlates with our own experience in the industry as such. I think all of you will find SAP BPC very comfortable because it has an Excel front end. But before I go any further, let me go to the demo and we will in detail answer your responsibility regarding planning as such. So the question basically is, what is BPC? BPC is a two-in-one planning and consolidation tool, a business planning and financial consolidation tool. It is part of the SAP EPM suite. It has a multiple tool sets in EPM, including profitability management, strategy management, and others. Planning and consolidation share common objects so that we can integrate them much better. At a user level, most activities are done via the EPM add-in to Excel, and as we go in the demo, you will see the EPM add-in, how EPM add-in comes to Excel and it simplifies your planning task and your consolidation tasks. Admin level activities are basically done via the web browser. On a technical perspective, the BPC cubes are installed within the NetWeaver environment, so you have to have a first BBW installed, and on top of that we install the NetWeaver BPC NetWeaver version. The actual data flow from ECC first flow to BW cubes and before it flows to ECC. So the data flow is ECC to BW to BPC. Planning data can be through manual input and flat file input. Flat file input can be very useful for loading large quantity of data, which can be generated by specialized primary applications. So you can actually, rather than manually entering all the plan data, you can do a flat file upload, and we will see an example of that as we go in the demo. This is again a graphical presentation of the two-in-one BPC application. On the left is a financial consolidation, right is the business planning, and we have some typical applications for financial consolidation and business planning. With that we have the legal requirement for financial consolidation for group companies, and we have US GAAP requirement, IFRS GAAP, they could be local GAAP requirement, and finally there could be a matrix consolidation which could be using profit center and partner profit center for an internal management division of profitability of the company. On the planning side, we have what is the first and the foremost thing, which is FIGL. This gives us the income statement and balance sheet, and this is what we will cover in today's RDS presentation. Then you could have a separate planning for headcounts, more detail. Again, we can talk about that in a subsequent webinar. We can have sales and operation planning, more detail, or we can also have CapEx planning. But these, to just clarify, all these three that we have below FIGL, they can all integrate very well within the FIGL planning environment. This is a graphical presentation of the technical architecture that we see. I just want to point out a couple of things, that BW cubes reside and BPC cubes reside within the enterprise data warehouse or the BW environment. BW cubes are read optimized, they're very good for reporting purposes. BPC cubes are write optimized because we have to manually enter data through input templates directly, and so they are for both the purpose of reporting and writing, but they are more better at writing than reporting. So we prefer heavy duty reporting to be in BW and planning to be done in BPC cubes. What is included in the RDS? So if you ask us, YASH Technology, to come in and help us, we just want to be sure what we will be delivering and what is the client responsibility from that side. We will give the data model, the complete environment, the application that go with that. Some of them may be seen technical to you, but we will explain as we go ahead the dimensions that are part of the data model. We will give you the business rules and logic and the reports. Any configuration that is in the ECC in BW are typically part of a client responsibility. Again, we want to clarify the project plan, how we work together, who has responsibility for each stage of the project, from start, deploy to run, and this graphical shows the shared responsibility and our typical YASH responsibility in the project. Again, what are the benefits of the RDS, the business benefits RDS is a complete solution that will be delivered to you within fixed cost and time budget. There's no need for gathering requirements. There's no need for RFPU, RFQ, POC. We will determine additional strategy based on the variance analysis. So once you implement this RDS or FIGL, you would then able to see from the variance between your plan and actual numbers, and then you can go for more detailed planning in the areas. For example, the variance could be in sales planning. Your sales plan, sales information could be very different from your actual numbers. You could then go for detailed planning for sales rather than, let's say, CapEx planning. So this will outline and give you a strategy. How should you go ahead and implement the next stage of the plan? This will set up the baseline environment which can be leveraged for subsequent planning. From a technical perspective, what we delivered is a complete leveraging the ECC BW environment. All the cubes, the info objects, the process chain, the packages and packaging, these are BPC terms, may not be familiar with most of you. The transformation and conversion file, we transform and convert the BW data into BPC data. Then obviously the last and final are the input and output templates. Output templates are reports. Input templates are those that are used for manual input. So, but what is important is to see that since we outline and clearly define the solution, you would also know your internal costs, how much of your staff cost is going to be dedicated to this project. There will be no surprises in terms of that. So apart from writing out check to us or to a partner, we'd also know how much is going to internally cost you, because the solution is so clearly defined that there's very few spaces left or very, very few possibility or surprises on this development, which I think is a key benefit from a client perspective. Again, what are we delivering in part of this FIGL RDS? We'll deliver a complete income statement and balance sheet. Each row of the income statement and balance sheet will be planned. So which is very crucial. You get everything that you need for income statement and balance sheet planning. We will be supporting by the actual data from the new GL. Again, I just want to clarify that the premise of this implementation is that you have new GL turned on in your ECC environment. We're not able to support classic GL at this point in time. We want a new GL, and we also want the BW environment to be able to support BPC 10. This is our preferred version for BPC, and that requires BW 7.3 to be implemented in the client. This, I think, is a crucial slide, which I think what we were talking about earlier hopefully leads to this one. We are giving you the central part of the planning, which is the financial planning part of it. You see the income statement, or you also obviously get the balance sheet from here. Then you can obviously develop sub-modules or sub-plans feeding into each of these line item in more of your planned numbers. Your actuals are coming off very different from the planned numbers. Then maybe you need to go in a more for sales planning. You need to see your sales quantities are varying or your realization is varying. But you can go into more detailed planning once the basic infrastructure is ready. So this for me is a very crucial insight, that if you are doing planning, go for the complete income statement balance sheet planning first of all, and then you can do a subsequent sub-plans which can feed into each of these line item on the financial statement. This is a technical perspective that we're providing, shows you the data flowing from left to right. As we said earlier, we want the ECC and BW responsibility with the client, and this is the scope of the RDS, is when we start staging the data in the BPC cube before we move to the final BPC planning cube as such. We also have now, based on Service Pack 4 of BPC 10, the data capability turned on, so we only pull in data that has changed during the period, the next period. We don't have full uploads, we only can work with delta uploads, which speeds up the whole planning process greatly. who's the audience for this FIGL planning. Obviously, they are profit center planning who will plan the revenues and the cost of revenues. We will have cost center planners. We would also have the balance sheet planner. For example, we could have people planning for CapEx if they want to add additional capacity. So they could add their assets they will be acquiring for this balancing equipment or additional plant equipment. They could be planning the balance sheet. And then obviously people in operation, finance, and management team and executives will be consuming these reports at different stages of development. So this, since we are doing the complete income statement and balance sheet, which shows the historical performance of the company and the planned performance in future period, we feel that FIGL RDS has a wide footprint as the user community is concerned. It has the widest, basically, footprint possible. Again, we would like to have the third poll to get a feedback from you in terms of, do you have any plans for BPC implementation, and then what is the time frame you're looking at? Please take time to respond to those questions. Well, I think again we got a very good response that a large number of people wants to plan, but there are a subsequent number who are not very sure about planning, but that is fine. I think hopefully some of you will be converted to this understanding that this could be useful in the long term. We're just seeding the market. We're trying to increase the footprint and bring this RDS, which will hopefully move you towards implementing BPC in the near future. So going into more detail, we have 3 business processes that this RDS supports. This basically takes the first business process is loading from right that you see loading actual data from the source system, in this case the new GL, the master data and transactional data that we have. And then we would go for the second, which is basically comparing the templates, actual and planned budgets that we will be comparing. We want to see that happening. And third BPC is in terms of inputting data into the template. So these are the 3 business processes that we will be covering in this one. Again, the technical implementation involves from our side, from YASH side, a 3-step implementation. We will be implementing a financial planning model. What set of information is required? What is the technical architecture that would be feeding, will be giving you those numbers for income statement and balance sheet planning? We'll be giving you that. Then a complete data integration model. How will master data and transactional data flow from ECC to BW and from BW to BPC? That will be set up by us for your purpose. Furthermore, we will be giving you templates for reporting as well as entering data into the solution. Such. Let us now go into the financial model in more detail. So here, what are we offering as part of implementing this solution? We'll be giving 2 cubes or models, as they are called in BPC. They are based on the SAP ECC environment. One is a financial cube, the planning cube, and which covers financial statement planning. Then also a rate cube, because what we have when you plan, the company plans, if a global company plans in the local currency, and to aggregate those numbers for the group company, we need to have a currency translation take place so that these numbers can be aggregated. And for that, we have a rate cube or rate model, which will dynamically, on real-time basis, help us convert those local numbers into group currency numbers. Then obviously we have the master data tables that leverage what is available in the new GL in ECC. What are the benefits, business benefits of implementing the financial planning model? The biggest benefit is that it takes a structure, and it's taken some time to develop this RDS. Because there's so many possibilities in ECC, what should we actually pull through from ECC to BW so that you have a more comprehensive understanding of your income statement and balance sheet. It is not only account, it is more than accounts that you will gain and which will help you see as you go in the demo what are we actually pulling and why we're pulling those information into BPC. Then you'll have a documented process. How would you go about implementing that? Also to create flexible reports that is important to do that. We have the data integration architecture for master data and transfer data that flows from ECC to BW and to BPC. For transfer data to flow without any failure, the first and foremost is to have the correct master data structure to be in place. So the master data is first and foremost extracted, and it is followed by the standard data. Then we also, this includes, and this is just part of the thing, it includes a complete extraction layer from the DSO onwards. It includes a multiple staging layer consisting of info cubes, and then obviously all the back-end BPC object, processes, task, and configuration. So this data integration model sets up a huge backbone of technical architecture for implementing BPC in the front end and a subsequent growth for your planning environment. Then again, just to reiterate and reconfirm what this data integration model consists of. As we mentioned, it includes a robust data integration model, including an automated master data load for key master data tables from ECC for these ones: accounts, company, profit center, functional area, profit center, trading partner. It also loads hierarchies, because in reporting in BPC, hierarchies are very crucial, and every dimension has an hierarchies. But some of the hierarchies are not relevant, cannot be pulled in from ECC, so they are created in BPC directly. But the three ones that we actually pull in for the RDS are the GL account based on the financial statement version, the cost center, and the profit center hierarchies. Obviously, we have a delta load capability, as I mentioned earlier, so you only pull in the data that has changed over the earlier load. What are the benefits of the data integration model? The whole integration from end to end is defined. You know exactly what objects will be used at what point in time, how the data will be stored and staged and transformed. So we are also replicating the hierarchy, the ECC hierarchy structure, the load of current hierarchies. Then we have a user interface which assists you in the planning process. There's no need, like I said earlier, for delta cap. Full load. We can integrate now. We can only have delta capabilities. We have delta capabilities to only load the changes that have happened, and this integration can help you implement this process within weeks rather than which would take earlier months to figure out the best practices regarding the integration. Since they're not really clearly defined and documented, it really takes only weeks to implement rather than months, which was the earlier case. Here I would like to switch on and just try to give you a sense of the background, the technical background in the BW environment for the data load. So from left to right, we have the top left, we have the ECC tables, FAGL Flex A and FAGL Flex T in the new GL, which store the data, the transaction and the balances, which are then extracted to a cube, which we have defined. We have modified the 0FIGL C10 cube, and those data are in an extracted to this cube. From there, then we again stage it and transform it to a BPC staging cube, which is a custom cube that we have created in the BW environment, ZFIGL C10P, and from there onwards, the data goes to and is pulled by the BPC cube. Now, this BPC planning cube on bottom left is not a manually created cube. It is auto-generated from the admin panel. So we don't go and change anything there. Anything we need to the backend, anything we need to change in the BPC cube, we have to go and change it from the front end, the web interface we talked about earlier. Finally, we're talking in terms of the templates. So you have got data now loaded. How do you actually use the data that you've loaded? How do you start your planning process and utilize the data and save the data into your planning data into the BPC cube and do all the activity that you need to do? So we have templates which support this kind of activity. Again, to clarify for financial analysis, planning and analysis, what are we offering in terms of reports? We have a trend report that shows the trend of data over a period of 12 months. We have various report which shows you current year versus the prior period, both for actual data and the planned data. Then we have the third bullet point and report talks about the ECC reconciliation report. So we have a report which matches, which we want to be sure the data that you have in BPC is exactly what you had in ECC. So this reconciliation report mirrors the FC10 report. A transaction called FC10 generates a report based on your financial statement version, and you can then match the numbers. For example, the net profit, which is dynamically calculated in BPC, is it coming to the same number that you had in BPC? Because that is a level of comfort that you need to have, that your numbers are actually getting pulled in correctly from ECC via the BW infrastructure to the BPC templates. Then we have input templates for entering cost center expenses. Then we have for profit center, we use sales and cost of revenues. Again, for balance sheet, we enter the balance sheet item, like I mentioned earlier, the capex, the plant and equipment. If you plan to change them, you can enter those numbers into the balance sheet. And finally, you may want to enter some foreign exchange numbers. So typically, we try to pull in the numbers from the T-cut table in ECC through the BW route, but there's certain exchange rate that may not be available in the T-cut table, which you may want to pull in directly here. This is a screenshot of the BPC cube, and now I think it's a good time to switch over to the demo. Just give me a few seconds. So I think you should be able to see my demo now, my screenshot. Yeah. So when you install the EPM add-in to Microsoft Office, you get these two new tabs available on the ribbon, the Excel ribbon, the EPM tab and the Data Manager tab. And so these are EPM is added also to the Word and PowerPoint. When you start this, when I want to log in, what happens is the metadata is also loaded on my local machine, which is really meaning the dimension and the members. And this really helps in performance because we're not pulling the numbers, the metadata from the cube on the real-time basis. We have loaded at the time of loading it actually is on the local machine, and that really helps out. We also have a tab for collaboration. This is obviously a tab for data input, and we will go into that when we do some planning. This is a collaboration tool, and this is for able to publish your data, also to send out some kind of templates for people to fill in, which they will fill in, and you can then capture that, collect that information, so that everybody doesn't have to log into the BPC front end to enter their data. They could be entering it on Excel and sending you the information, and could be collecting that and adding that. Now, right here we have the dimension that you see of this data mode. So this is what we talked about earlier. So we have chosen, the RDS has chosen, SAP has chosen to include these specific dimensions as part of the data model or the financial model. And so first and foremost, obviously, is the account dimension that you see here. For each of the dimensions, as I mentioned earlier, you would have an hierarchy that is here. So in this account hierarchy, we have two basic categories, hierarchies for balance sheet and income statement. We have about 598 accounts, as you see here, in the balance sheet, and about 302 accounts in income statement. So everything is in two terms of hierarchies. And BPC works through hierarchies in most situations. So this gives you a understanding about how these accounts are set up. The second one is not in obviously in ECC, it is only in BPC, but it gives you an idea of the source of the data. Where did this data actually come from? In this case, the data we will see is mostly coming from the BWGL source. We could be obviously generated, suppose we were to calculate the net income in BPC as a difference between revenue and expenses, then you would see that numbers under the BPC calc. So you could separate out the source of the data. You could obviously separate out what data you are actually manually inputting. So you have full visibility, and you can obviously expand on this list if you want more visibility. These are just sample that we have given, but you can expand this list to have more visibility on the data. And this is a very, very powerful feature that BPC provides. You have full visibility of your data. Then obviously we have the cost centers and the cost center that we have pulled in from ECC BW that you see here. So we have about 1,639 cost centers as part of this cost center hierarchy. So you can see a pretty large number. We're not talking of small hierarchies. We're talking of reasonably large SAP size hierarchy for SAP clients hierarchies. Then we obviously have currencies, and we typically have two currencies here. One is the local currency. Second is the group currency. And if you want to have also reporting USD as group currency or reporting currency, we can do that also. That should not be too much of a problem. Then we have something called a flow dimension. And some people who have worked in ECC will be aware of transitional type or movement types. There's something like that. It helps you build a vertical statement, which means you can see the opening balance. You have columns and balance sheet accounts that you can have, which will show for, let's say, for plant and machinery, what was the opening balance, what was the additional asset you acquired, what was discarded or disposed of. So you have full visibility of how your numbers for the balance sheet item has changed over a period of time. This is also a very powerful thing. Then again, we have pulled in the functional areas from ECC. And we have about 62 functional areas here. Now, functional areas are very interesting also because they allow you to break your expenses into the source of expense. So, example, the source of salaries could be administrative salary, R&D salary, or other salaries. Other option would be to have these as separate GL accounts. So we could have a salary, a GL account for salary, admin, salary, R&D. But by using function area, we don't have to expand our chart of account. We can keep it limited and divide that again into functional areas, and we have visibility on that. The next one is profit centers, and we know the profit center are for responsibility accounting, and then give you both the profit center, the partner profit center there, and a relationship is also built with that. Then we have a trading partners and a version. This is an actual data or a planned data. Then obviously we can run any report by three measures, which is also very interesting. A periodic is typically each month at a separate period, or we can have a quarterly report. So it will show you, summarize the data into the 3 months, and the fourth is a summarization of that quarter. Then obviously we can have year-to-date reporting also from there. This is visible in this version that you just saw, right? I think I didn't touch on the cost company code dimension, but you can see there are about 101 company code that are already pulled in. What is also interesting is that we have a relationship that is also built in these dimensions that is taking place to do that. But let us go further and see that. Now, the way you would really start is to load the data into the BPC queue. And to do the data, we'd actually go and load, we would use a data manager for that purpose. So we would upload the data into the BPC queue from our local queue. Suppose I'm going to load a flat file. In this case study, we'll use a flat file rather than a BW cube to load data. So we would have a flat file on our computer. I would load it to the BPC server. Once it is loaded, then I can preview the data. So let's see a flat file. Let me just cancel it here and show you. We have a flat file. So this shows the size of the file. It shows a number called size called 23,997. This is not bytes. This is the number of records. So this is a flat file which has about 23,997 records. Obviously, the first is a header row, so it has one less record than that. And let us see this record that we have in this flat file. And they are comma delimiters. This is how a record in BPC looks like. And you would see that these columns match the dimension layout on the right side. So they have to be synchronized in that way. The flat file data has to match the dimension here. And so we have all the information populated. You'd also see that we added some prefix called A underscore for account because people get confused. So we are doing a transformation, a conversion rather, of adding these A numbers to that. You'll also see that we have a currency. We're using both, the translation has taken place, so we're using both the local currency numbers and the euro number, the group currency euro in this case. And finally, we have the actual data that is here. So once the data has been, we have previewed the data, we can run a package to load the data. We would choose one of those import transfer type. This is again packages. We have package link, which are combination of packages, and we would run them. And each of these packages has behind that a process chain in BW that runs it. So we would load this file. Again, we can preview this file. Is the same file that we had seen earlier. Next, we would load what is called a transformation file. We can preview that here. And, this is a simple one. From BW, it becomes more complicated. Next, we would replacing the current data with the new file data. We're not trying to merge the data. We could also do that, but in this case, we have chosen to have a clean start by replacing the actual data, current data with the new data. Now, this again shows us what is called a default logic. I've chosen to say no. Default logic is what we can run, and something we can have as part of default logic is currency translation. So as soon as we have we load data, it can do currency translation at the same time. So the data will get populated with the group currency values also. This we could run in the background at the time of importing the data, but we chose not to do that. Next is work status. We would not checking the work status. I would not run the file actually because it might take about a few minutes, but I will want to show you a result of that I ran last evening. So this is the report I ran last evening. You see the package that we loaded this. So like I said, one record is a header record. This 23,996 records were loaded in the queue. But we also have a warning that is shown here. We want to see why this warning is there, and you realize that we have number of duplicate records in the queue, which is fine, but they are just telling us that some of the records will be aggregated based on these numbers. And I looked at the flat file in my Excel and it showed me about 840 records are duplicates, but they'll be aggregated. So you have full visibility, and let me just show you the detail that if you were to run actually, it's taken about close to 2.5 minutes, 155 seconds to load this 23,000, or nearly close to 24,000 records, which, as you would I think acknowledge, is a pretty fast way of loading data. So once we have loaded the data, let me go back and show you a few reports. Just a sec. So this is a report. We will show you 3 reports here. The first report is a trend report that shows when the data is loaded, then I can show you a trend report showing how these numbers actually come in into the data, and we can just refresh the data and see the data show up in the reports. So this is a trend report which has all the numbers shown up by each month, and this is for the actual data that is already we have loaded. The second report that I want to show you is a comparison report, which basically are comparing actual numbers for the current month, which is 2009 December, to a prior month, a year back. Similarly, we have a comparison between the planned numbers, but since we didn't have any planned numbers for 2009 or 2008, sorry, we have 0 values there. So the variance doesn't really, percentage variance doesn't make any difference. But you would see these variances, and these are the guidance that would help you in planning your numbers going forward. The last report I want to show you is a ECC reconciliation report. Now what happens is that when you have, like I said earlier, FC10 is a transitional code in ECC, and if you want to run the transitional code FC10, you would see a set of numbers show up on your screen. Now this report and that report and this report should be similar. The numbers should be exactly similar. So this will verify that all the numbers that were in ECC have, through the data extraction process and the staging process, the transformation process, the loading process, have actually come to reside correctly in the BPC cube. This gives a level of comfort and an audit trail that the data is exactly the way it was supposed to be in BPC. I would just like to show you one about entering the data. We could be entering data using an input template, and let us see. Just a sec. So here we have data that is there loaded in this. What we can do is to, rather than have all company codes, we can pick up a specific cost center and then load plan for the specific cost centers. So let us pick up this cost centers, and we will refresh our templates. Yeah, so now you see that I had to only select the cost center, and the company code was correctly selected automatically by the system, because in the background there is a relationship between cost center and company code. In the background there is a relationship in the financial model that we built, a relation between company code and a profit center, a cost center and a profit center. It's a relationship between a cost center and a functional area. So this is very crucial that these relationships are carried forward from the ECC environment, and the user does not select the wrong combination. So this is very crucial in the financial model that we build, that those relationships are pulled in correctly. So based on choosing a cost center, it has given me the correct company code, and based on the company code selection, it has given me the currency of planning currency. So we would be planning in local currency, and this will get converted as we save the data in the euro, which is a local group currency, based on the exchange currency translation that runs in the background regarding that. And I would just take a few seconds to do that before we go for a demo. So we have this planning capabilities. We have 3 planning functions available to us, and let us plan 600,000 GBP, pound, British pound, for for the next 10 months. So you see that this template has shown me what are the actual numbers. So they provide me guidance for the next 10 months. I can look at my actual numbers and then plan for the next months. When, let's say, we roll over to April, the template, by changing the admin in the background, I will see actual numbers for 3 months, not 2 months. Because now I'm in April, and actual numbers for March have already come in. In this case, they have not. So I am currently presuming that I'm in March 2009, and we have actual numbers only for Jan and Feb. When I move to April, this column will change automatically based on the settings, and we will be pulling in the actual numbers for March, right? So this is very crucial, and this is a guidance for you have plan every month. You can change your next, which is also some type called a rolling plan, that you keep changing your future plans for the remaining months of the year to hit a specific targeted value based on that. So I would not choose that anyways. I will just pick up my cells that I need to post data. So I've chosen these 10 months, sorry. And so, sorry, this is just a sec. So this is, we are planning 600,000. For this month, for destination. Yeah, so it has spread out the 600,000 for 60,000 for the next 10 months as such. So this is just an example, and then I can go and save the data. 10 records. So we have a success in here. So this success shows the 10 records have been saved. What it doesn't show you currently, but what you can look in the report subsequent, is that we have done currency translation, and the GBP values is 60,000 for each month would be converted in the relevant euro values. This is the demo. I would like now Kara to take next 10 minutes that are available for us. Thank you, everybody.
Avi, I'm going to step in. Once again, thanks, Avi, for showing us how to leverage the RDS for automating BPC processes for quicker budgeting and a faster close, hopefully. I hope this webinar was helpful to our audience when it comes to streamlining planning, forecasting, and other related planning tasks.